The Nashimoto Files. Hope. Is love just about two people, or can it be about three, four, five, or more? So, in the form of a question, her love's awareness was clear. Love, being shared, is known through sharing. We hear now. The children, instantly recognizing the pure innocence of her expression, gathered in a little closer to hear more. She gently smiled, and mutual appreciation seemed to fill the apparent space between the bodies. She then continued with yet another statement in the form of a question. If love is what we are, yet we don't know what we are, how would we know love if we've decided what it is? To this, I raised my hand and caught her attention. I asked, how is it that I can sense love in another, but they don't know it is there? Ah, yes, you too like to make statements in the form of questions, she replied, as if she had just read my mind. She then raised her eyes, peered out at each of us through half-smiling slits, and in a perfectly calm voice said, "The lost ones do not believe they are lost." It seemed as eons had passed, and I was a different person. "Am I your cross to bear?" she silently asked me through her searing and loving eyes. I'd met her only months before. Well practiced in denial, however, I resisted opening my mind to deep feelings I sensed within. So I replaced my openness with a beaver's drive to build a dam in my heart, my latest home, where I might slow or stop the flow of truth in me, of the love she could reveal. Yes, I see well beyond her body into a mirror of my questions, the questions asked by bodies. And yet I see her body too, or is it our desire for me to see it, or just mine? And at the end of these effusions of insecurity is no real end, just the last question and grand finale of self-abasing doubts. Am I still alone? To go from I am to I am never alone, to might I be alone, to I am alone, to am I still alone, must take an incredulous and nearly irreconcilable identity inversion. Either and in any way, I would naturally give her what she wants, as I know her to be none other than me. And now the mind ascends, not to greater and lesser, merely higher versus lower identity bands or frequencies, while in the process of unlearning, we realize that although bodies seem to come in many forms, one is still not form. The bits and parts presented in forms called we squared, we cubed, etc., are enlivened imagery, identical to a dream, beamed as images by us and to us using kaleidoscopic telemetry. So to see bodies requires an identity inversion, the belief in a falsehood, where the always becomes maybe or maybe not, where what is might be what's not. As one enters into the realm of subjective realities, a sense of isolation is initially imminent. Then it feels profound, exquisite, painful, confusing, but thankfully and inevitably temporary. Said most simply, to see bodies, one must seem a body to self. That's the identity inversion which, although merely mirrors of self, appears most distinctly different. Of this we have been angry and ashamed, and surprised to learn it too. But none of anger, shame, or surprise do more than make the unreal seem even more real. False fortifiers to fortify a false idea, that the abstract can be contained by form. And lastly, because only one's loving thoughts are true, if I am dreaming, I only want a happy dream, where I'm not what I seem, but are seen for what I am. The escape from guilt and sorrow, then, is the purpose, repellent and propellant of a happy body dream. All escape, as defined by the lost ones, involves the intervention of time and space in some form or another. This, of course, is not an escape, but merely a defensive stance that accomplishes nothing. And to tell this story, I had to seemingly blend with many bodies over many lifetimes. By the unsatisfying and paradoxical shapes of those blends, we are recognized from the inner realm as the lost ones. Each blend seems to separate and separately frame the certain hopes of the lost ones. But hopes derived in uncertainty must bear witness to the uncertain. For I would then be the bumble in your bee, I am then as you would see. But the lost ones, still a part of the one, could never be without helpers guiding their fun. Being among the lost ones is not fun. And that's because what they don't realize is that fun is all a lie. Life isn't fun. It is hypocrisy, it is paradox, it is murder, it is death. It is endless arguments between people emphatically saying the same thing about the same thing, but without that obvious recognition. That's the version of life desired by the lost ones. How can anyone not want to die within that description? Yet death is no escape. Life is. The seemingly simplest minded among the lost ones cannot avoid developing a deep and deepening sense of injustice while lingering on, pretending to be an avatar. But while I might find that objectionable because of my goal, ascension, to the lost ones, it is the perfect nourishment for their fantasies and nightmares. The life version experienced by the lost ones is of constant striving. No sense of completion is more than temporary, so it is really not completion, nor is the experience truly understood as being a twisted and wholly negated manifestation of the term completion, masquerading as appropriate, acceptable, or perhaps the most purportedly weighty, benchmarking, yet still entirely innocuous term, normal. To ascend from the world of guilt and sorrow means the complete recognition of its opposite, innocence and happiness, in everyone and everything. So by complete in the ascension process, we mean that the mind transmutes or unlearns its identity constellation such that innocence and happiness actually have no opposite in the new system of thinking. Guilt and sorrow, then, are simply unreal. To the lost ones, this will be initially viewed as a complete thought reversal, and such a proposal plays perfectly to their inherent fear of change. From fear, the limited body identity awareness is quickly employed to move the mind into a false sense of understanding. False because it actually and ironically paralyzes the mind towards any further attempt to understand any more than the fear emotion itself. The thought reversal cannot be therefore completed by a body, but it can be completed by a mind, even and especially the minds that believe they occupy a body. Some of those minds actually believe their identity to be the body. They're like great actors who commit wholly to being in character. They don't just look the part, they think it and feel it. The first stage of unlearning, therefore, is the active introduction of doubt into the idea of the body as identity. As the mind loosens its grip on body identity exclusivity, it begins to awaken. But this is merely the beginning. The awakening is then nurtured through increasing thought challenges to the values derived by the lost ones. Those values are quite easily dispelled by one simple question: why? When the mind is willing to ask why, and it is simultaneously increasingly unwilling to limit the application of the question, inner realms of pretense are first exposed, second seen as causeless, or just choice, not fact, and third, no longer experienced as effect. Accompanying the recognition of causelessness, the absence of reason, is yet another critical idea, that all experience is in complete accordance with the goal of the mind. Because the mind is setting the goal for the experience, if confusion, conflict, and injustice are not goals, they will not be experienced. The activated mind, then, will quite literally transmute any seeming situation or experience, present, past, or future, into alignment with its purpose.